Lesson 13-14, Surface area of cubes, rectangular prisms, and cylinders. By the end of today's lesson, you will be able to use formulas to find the surface area of cubes, rectangular prisms, and cylinders. Make sure you have your pencil and paper ready so you can take notes and work out some of the problems right along with me. Here's the formula for finding the surface area of a cube. The S, which is the surface area of the cube, equals 6 times E squared. The E stands for edges. So here we have a picture of a cube, right here. And here it is if we cut it apart and laid it flat. So the surface area of a cube would be, we would figure out what the area of just one of these square faces are. We would be multiplying that by 6 because you see when we cut it out there are 6 squares then. When we lay it flat we see that there's 6 squares. So if in this example where each edge is 2.5 feet, we would plug that in to our equation and we would have S equals 6 times that edge is 2.5 feet squared. So we can use fractions for that too. S equals 6 times, we'd use those improper fractions, 5 over 2 times 5 over 2. And then we'd make that 6 into a fraction. So S equals 6 over 1 times 5 over 2 times 5 over 2. Then we can do some cross canceling here. So it goes in there 1, 3. Alright, so there isn't anything else we can cross out. So we're left with S equals 3 times 5 times 5. And then that would be over 2. So we end up with 75 over 2. And then when we turn that back into a mixed number, we have 37.5 feet squared. Alright, I want you now to find the surface area of a cube that has each edge is 4 centimeters long. So pause the video and then come back and check your work against mine. So I have S equals 6 times the edge is 4 squared. So S equals 6 times 16. So that would equal 96 centimeters squared. Alright, I hope that's what you were able to get as well. Here's the formula that you'll need for finding the surface area of a rectangular prism. It would be S equals 2 times the length times width plus 2 times the width times height plus 2 times the length times height. So if we take a look here at this rectangular prism, this is what it looks like in 3D form. Here's what it looks like when we cut it apart and lay it out flat. So you can see here we've got the length times width, and then we've got so we've got 2 of the green ones, 2 blue, and 2 of the red. So that way you can see that it's because there's 2 of the length times width, 2 of the width times height, and 2 of the length times height. And so you're going to add each of those together in order to get this whole area here. Alright, so let's go ahead and figure this one out. So we have the surface area for this equals 2 times the length times width. So the length times width would be 10 centimeters times 3 centimeters. So here's our length times width right here. Then we have the area of those side faces, which is, or here we'll just figure this one out. It equals 60 centimeters squared. So then we have these other side here. We're going to be adding all of these up. 2 times 3 centimeters times 5 centimeters equals 30 centimeters. And then for our next section, we have the 2 times the length, which is 10 centimeters, times the height, which is 5 centimeters, equals 100 centimeters squared. And then we add all of these up. So it does help when you just write it out like this, because then you can easily add them up in this column here. And when you add them up, you get 190 centimeters squared. Here we have the length, width, and height of another rectangular prism. So I want you to figure out the surface area and then come back and check your work against mine. Alright, so I'm going to line these up right here just like I did last time. So I would have the 2 times the length times width. So that would be length is 9 feet times width is 2 1/3 feet. Okay, so this would be 2 times 9, and I turn that into 6 7 thirds times 7 thirds. Make that a fraction. 1, 3. So 3 times 7 is 21 times 2 equals 42. So I'm going to write that right here, 42 feet squared. Then my next one is 2 times the width times height. So width is 2 1/3 times the height is 1 1/2. So then that equals 2 times 7 over 3 times 3 over 2. I cross those out, and I have 7 over 2. 2 over 1 times 7 over 2. And that equals 7 feet squared. And then my last one, I have 2 times the length, which is 9, times my height, and that would equal 1 1/2. So 2 times 9 over 1 times 3 over 2. So that equals 27 over 2 times 2 over 1. So that equals 27 feet squared. And then I add each of those up, and I have 76 feet squared. All right, I hope that's what you were able to get as well. For our last part, we have the surface area of a cylinder. So that formula is 2 times pi times r squared plus 2 times pi times r times h. So here's what that cylinder looks like. And then here's what it looks like deconstructed. So we've got 2 circles and we have 1 rectangle. So for this one, in order to find the surface area, we would have the S equals 2 times the area of a circular base. So that would be 2 times the pi 3.14 times the radius squared, which is 2 squared, plus 2 times pi times the radius, which is 2. Right here, I'll just keep writing it that other way, times 2 times the height, which is 4. So as I go through and multiply that out, I have 2 times 3.14 times 2 squared, And all of that, when I multiply those together, I have 25.12 inches squared. Plus, when I multiply 2 times 3.14 times 2 times 4, I get 50.24 inches squared. And then I just need to add those together. And I have 75.36 inches squared. All right, make sure you rewatch any part of today's lesson before going off to do today's math assignment.